Well, hello everyone. This is the real Doc Harmony. I just have to add a little caveat, and I can do this because I'm with my favorite guest speaker tonight, my husband, Kevin Boulton, and he'll let me be a little girly because he's so precious that way. So everybody, yes, this is my real hair. As you know, my AI has been experimenting with a lot of things. So any comments and feedback, so now I get to be a silver angel for my husband. So I'm so excited. Yes, and I am the real Doc Harmony. So I let everybody know that, Kevin, because sometimes I have on the big red wigs or I have on a different hairstyle, and I don't want them to get confused. I want them to know the difference between AI, who she is rocking, is she not? My AI avatar is rocking, and the real me. And this is Doc Harmony, Lady Harmony with the Queen Circle. So sometimes you'll see Lady Doc Harmony, and this is my wonderful, amazing husband who I love so much. We've been together 24 years. One day we will have to tell the story of how we met. It's so fun, funny, dramatic, traumatizing, lots of tears and lots of giving it all up, wouldn't you say? So Kevin, yeah, so would you mind telling everybody what we're going to chat with? Real quick, we're just going to do a short podcast tonight, what we're going to talk about.
Well, I thought, as we discussed earlier, I thought we would talk about a big subject that we've been on lately is sovereignty, and what that looks like in a relationship. You know, how important as a man or a woman that our words are, and how that either inspires or creates, a level of distrust when we don't follow up with our word. So,
and how important is word, Kevin? I think you have a wonderful quote, and I think it should be everywhere.
Well, I think the interesting part about that, if you go to John 1:1, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Well, if we're made in the image of God, then our words are very powerful, very, very powerful. It's interesting. This week has been a very interesting week with some great opportunities to learn about this. And it's interesting how when negative words were spoken, how that landed and how that impacted our lives. And then when words of love or creation were spoken, it just completely wiped all of that out. And in our minds, we hear the negativity, and we have to be very careful because we have to protect what we see. We have to protect what we hear, because all of those can affect us. If we allow that negativity to land on us, it makes life very difficult.
And everybody, I will share what my husband is referring to is that negativity in between the heads, and being a menopausal cray-cray woman, which we've talked a lot about on my channel, is that sometimes that negativity, and then so regrettably, I just, spewed it out. I didn't have enough room for it to deal with it and manage it. And those negative words, gosh, and then the word was God. Is that God? Absolutely not. I think that I'm pretty well convinced that, negative thinking is the way of Satan and evil. Call it whatever you want to, negative universe, negative thinking, flat out Satan, because at the end of the day, would God want me to talk to myself this way? Would God want me to talk to you this way? And even though I managed it, thank God, the skill sets that we've developed over the past wonderful 24 years, yay. But it still doesn't mean that it's perfect, does it, Kevin? It means that, each time I go cray-cray, I just try to tighten it up a little bit more. I know I'm not where I want to be, and I never, ever want to do or say anything that would hurt you. And so, but then, because of the day, and I loved how you really talked about love, and in the word, and just all during the day, how you were loving and kind and supportive, and we'll get through this, babe, and and just praying together, and just really praying that the Holy Spirit give me enough strength to make it through the day. And as I shared with you, those miracles that occurred, being nice to others, being generous with others during the day. And then we got to end up and have a wonderful date night, didn't we? Yeah, it was wonderful, wasn't it? Right?
It was amazing.
But that came from words, didn't it?
It did.
So when as a man and sovereignty, with this man with this powerful ability to create with word, Give us a little bit, like a simple breakdown of what that means, sovereignty.
Well, I mean, well, our sovereignty is it's available to us, and it's a birthright, but
Mm,
it's not given to us. We have to go claim it.
mm,
It's there. It's God's gift to us, just like free will. But to have that sovereignty and to be sovereign in your word, it's something you have to reach out and get a hold of, and
mm,
you have to claim it. Um, it's no different than any other birthright. It's something you have to claim. It's not just given. You have to claim it, and there's effort involved in that. Um, this is part of life. I mean, if you want to avoid tyranny, then you have to claim your birthright, and you have to live that sovereignty. Most people think that a nation is sovereign, okay, but the sovereignty of the nation comes from the people. When you
mm,
have a republic, what we have, the sovereignty of that republic comes from the people.
mhm,
And if the people aren't sovereign, the nation isn't sovereign.
mhm.
So that's a misconception by most people. If you look at blacks and you look at Law of Nations, and there's very good descriptions there of what sovereignty looks like. And it's something that, as a man, it is absolutely your responsibility to claim that sovereignty, not just for yourself, but for your family.
Mhm.
And the words you speak to your children, the words you speak to your wife, for those out there, I speak my wife into existence every morning.
Yeah.
When she opens her eyes, I'm waiting for her. When she opens her eyes, the first thing I say to her is, "Good morning, my beautiful, amazing wife." I speak her into existence.
Mhm.
And where she brushes her teeth, on the mirror behind her, it says, "Good morning, beautiful," because that's who she is to me. And and my words of sovereignty, I speak her into that, so she gets to be that. Um, and she does the exact same thing for me.
So when you say though that freedom, I learned this from you, is that sovereignty is kind of like self-rule and freedom through responsibility and the
Yeah,
power to govern your own mind, emotions, and actions with integrity. And with the
that's right.
example we just gave, when I'm going cray cray, I do have the power. I just have to find it, right?
That's right.
And not get sucked into it and of my own mind and my emotions. And yes, your support and love helps, makes all the difference. Thank you. So
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit, like as a man, how that freedom, sometimes I think women are like, oh, a man gets to do whatever he wants to do. He gets to, blah, blah. And but a real sovereign man living in integrity in his word, what does that look like? Freedom, really freedom through responsibility.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say about living as a sovereign man, it is a sovereign man is unconquered
Mm,
because he governs himself. And
mm-hmm,
the thing about sovereignty is, we were given free will. And the thing is that we have that, but we can use that for wrong or we can use it for right.
mm-hmm,
And basically, you have to determine if you're going to create the laws and standards of your life, what are you going to base that on?
mm,
Are you going to base that on humanism? Or are you going to base that on, what are you going to base that on?
mm-hmm,
Because that's going to determine the type of sovereign man you are.
mm-hmm.
You could ask, was Hitler sovereign? Yes, he was.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, he was. Now, where did he base his sovereignty in? Where did
Oof.
he base his laws and his rules to run his life in? Well, clearly not in God's laws, not in God's word.
Mhm.
If you're a Christian, then as a man, you base your rules and your laws and your responsibilities in the word.
Mhm.
Again, we go back to, in the beginning was the word.
Mhm.
So your word as a man and your word as a woman really sets forth the beacon of light to the world with your words.
Mm,
Everything is created in the word.
mm,
The sky is blue. That's words.
mm,
My wife is beautiful. That is words.
mm,
So it's all based in language. It's all based in how we present it into reality. You can't create a company, a successful company. You can't create a relationship
mm, mm,
without words.
mm.
And I
Well,
think,
and I think that you remember Jordan Peterson's quote. I think we both love it, about every woman loves a beast. She just wants them to be highly disciplined, right? I want to know, and I do know for anyone listening, that, if a bad guy shows up at 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm probably going to end up feeling bad for the bad guy, and be like, ooh, that was a mistake, right? And I love that you have that strength and that integrity and that bravery, right? So courageous. But would I ever want that energy unleashed on me? Absolutely not, like at all, ever, right? So that discipline of being a man is just, first of all, it's incredibly sexy. And secondly, it's just it's so comforting. It is just, it's like the best blankie, you just sort of feel so comforted. So what are some of the things that a man would have to experience on it? Let's make it real tangible on a day-to-day basis. That I know you love to race, right? So you love to work on your race car. What sacrifices do you have to make, on a regular basis to keep your freedom through responsibility and have that integrity within your mind, emotions, and actions?
well, I think it's clear that God made us like savages as men.
Mm,
If we got to go out and hunt down the meat, there's some savagery in that. There's bloodshed in that.
mhm,
If someone shows up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't be timid about that. You have to be the savage.
mhm,
We recently read about uh, during the times of slavery when the slaves would get across the other side of the Ohio River into Indiana. A lot of them would turn back. Once they became free men, they
oh,
would turn back to go free other men. So if we think about that, you know, to bring light into darkness, that savage has to be capable of going into the dark. He
mhm,
has to be fearless to go into the dark.
mhm,
When you have to go back and put yourself at risk, it takes a savage to do that. A timid man does not do that.
mhm,
So, in the world that we live in on a daily basis, as a man goes out into the world, or, even women that work, they go out into the world, the world is not there to support you generally.
mhm,
If you're in a situation where you work in an environment where they are supported like that, you're working in a very rare place.
mhm,
Most people will step on you to get that promotion.
mhm,
They'll step on you to step up. So when you can be the kind of person that lifts everyone up around you, in your language, in your actions, in your speech, in your love, God doesn't want to step on anybody. You don't want to step on each other to get there. So, I think that even though we are built as savages, as men, to go out and shed blood to eat, unless you're a vegetarian and you're still killing plants. So, I think that controlling that, managing that, being disciplined with that, you know, like you said, every woman wants a beast. She just wants him to be disciplined. Well,
mhm,
we could replace that word beast with savage.
mhm,
Uh, what tiger is savage is very savage. So I think when we look at that, how our language shows up and how we show up in the world tells the world whether that savage or that beast is disciplined or not.
mhm. Well, I think if correct me if I'm wrong, but you really have been talking a lot about a sovereign man is unconquered because he governs himself, right? That goes back to that self rule. Like, I get and appreciate the Ten Commandments, but really, in theory, do we really need, shouldn't this be common sense? But it's not so much sometimes, right? And that the sovereign man only stays free and unconquered because he's willing to govern and discipline himself, right? And I think that that's what really shows up I want to kind of change gears a little bit in between the relationship between man and woman. Right. So many women think that, they're kind of scared of that word sovereign man, or he's a beast, or it can be a little intimidating because we won't get into it, the feminist movement and all that garbage. But, really the ability to just believe in our men, and believe, and this goes back to word, what you started out talking about, right? So I know if you say you're going to protect me, you're going to protect me. I know if you say you're going to get, fix my tire, you're going to fix my tire instead of, 3 weeks later. I mean, we have an employee who just let his girl's car go on and on and on, and she just, ended up being stranded. And it's just a horrible. So then what comes out of that for the woman is trust. Believing in you is so, because of your word and your ability to discipline, whether it's working out, it's just honoring your word. I know when you say you love me because you're so concrete in your words everywhere else. And so I would presume that that's the same for a woman. How is that your perspective of a woman and her word? How does that show up in a man's world?
Well, it's very much the same. I mean, honoring your word and living your word shows up on both sides. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you say, "Oh, I'm going to fix a meal," and then you don't fix a meal, I'm like, okay, I'll go snack on something else. Or you say, I'm going to take care of the house, and you don't take care of the house. Or if you say, whatever it is. And as you well know, one of the challenges that I face in life is I'm not very aware of time. And in the past, that's created a lot of issues for us, because I'd say I was going to be there at 7:00 and I was late a lot, even on our first date.
Yeah, that was our first and our second date. Yes, both of them.
So it's something, I have to be very cognizant. I've got a watch that sets off alarms all day long. Things what time is it, So, and thank you for the grace that you've shown me for that. All these years of putting up with my not being aware of time. But in everything that we do, it shows up. If you do not show up as a woman of your word, and I do not show up as a man of my word, and do what I say I'm going to do, then it just doesn't show up as trust. It's hard to have that relationship where you can trust that person when they don't honor their own word. Think about it. If I say I'm going to work out every day, and then I don't work out, and I'm inconsistent about it, and that's something I have been inconsistent about in the past, is not working out like I said I was going to. But, over the last several months, I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this 100%. Mm-hmm. So it's little things like that, of adjusting and adapting and being consistent, that solidifies your word and solidifies in what people believe in.
Well, and for a woman, so for me, what that does is it makes me, it's beyond trust. It's like, I'm so happy that you're taking care of yourself because of your health and your vitality and your strength. And of course, your biceps and your chest is looking so hot. So such a turn on. But, it's just so nice to know that it reduces my worry. It reduces my stress, because I'm like, oh my God, he's working out and he's taking care of himself. This is awesome. And then it's kind of like something leaves my brain. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry, is he going to have a heart attack? I don't have to worry, is he going to, gain weight? Or, I'm so happy that we take such good care of ourselves, because then we get to really play with that, don't we? And we get to really enjoy that. And we get to really sink ourselves into each other and enjoy the fruits of being man and woman together. So that that one little example has such a ripple effect for a woman in so many different ways, right?
Think about this. Think Think about if I say I'm going to answer the door at 3 o'clock in the morning when the knock comes, but I don't live up to my word anywhere else.
Right.
Are you going to lay there in comfort going, oh, he's got this?
Mm-mm.
No, you're not.
Mm-mm.
If I say I'm going to work out and I don't get my workouts in every morning, then what makes you think I'm going to answer the door at 3 o'clock in the morning when the gun knocks, when the door knocks?
Mm-mm.
Right. So as men, sometimes we forget. Sometimes, and I know I have done this. We're like, oh, well, I can tell everybody else that and do it. But my wife understands. No, your wife doesn't understand. And I've been guilty of that in the past. Going, oh, okay, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. No, it won't be all right, because it damages the relationship. Because if you lack in your integrity to the word.
Mm. Well, what do you think about this? So, we've also been talking, and we're going to dig deeper into this, everybody, on different conversations. Today's just a little glimmer of our thoughts that we've been having lately. And I know Kevin is introducing a class and having a men's event coming up in March. I will be teaching a 12-week course starting in January. And so we're going to talk about, this is just a real high overview, right? So we also, Kevin, have been talking about, what is it like for a woman to submit her, sovereignly unto a head of household, right? And, being in the South, we can talk about head of household, and there's not a lot of offense. That's still in our language and in our culture. And of course, that's always with, the assumption, or not even the assumption, but with the understanding that the husband is sovereign unto God, unto the Lord, correct? Now, my question is that what I think needs to be in place for a woman such as myself, who's very independent, headstrong, A-type personality, firstborn, Taurus on top of it all.
And multiple degrees.
Yeah. And I think I know it all, right? Oops. Yeah, I keep taking that apple, don't I? I got this guy. I'm going to eat some more apple, right? But, and we'll explain that joke in class, but is that there has to be mutual respect for boundaries. There has to be know how to navigate conflicts respectfully, but really important here, mutual values and commitments. If you have different values and commitments, I'm not sure that you can navigate conflicts. You might be able to do it respectfully, but I'm not sure successfully. Does that make sense? And then 3, and lastly, is that being able to set aside personal interests in lieu of a harmonious interdependence, right? And, everybody's so, oh, don't be codependent, don't be interdependent, don't be, this is garbage. It's just garbage, I mean, the sacred, the holy sacrament of marriage, that sacredness is becoming one, and that's biblical, right? Isn't it? Where the man and the woman cleave unto each other and they become one, right? So what are your thoughts about how does a man need to really, is it a earning? Is it a showing up? What is it that would allow a woman to feel so confident that she could go, I believe in my husband 100%, that I can give up that control and I can just focus on loving my husband, loving my children, and managing the relationship versus trying to control the man? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I can reflect back to the beginning of our relationship. And when you and I were having a conversation about something that got spilled in the kitchen or whatever, and I said, well,
it was a fight. It was not a conversation. He's being very, very generous here. Thank you very much, Kevin.
An aggressive conversation. Let's call it that. And I think, and I said at that point, there can only be one head of household. If you try to have 2 CEOs running a company, it's not going to work.
Doesn't work.
And not even if they're twins. So I said, there can only be one head of household, and we've got to figure this out. And it's so funny when I said that, because at both at the same time, we both said, that's me. Because, you were very dominant in your previous relationship, and you took the role and it made it easier for the other person. And it's easy when a man just lets the woman run the whole show. Mm. But when that happens, then she has to step into her masculinity. Mm. She has to live in her masculinity, and there is no room for her to be feminine when she's living in a masculine role. And a lot of men, they're like, well, my wife's not feminine. Well, are you masculine? Are you stepping up to the plate? Are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you fulfilling your obligations as a man? Because if a man does not feel his obligations and does not willing to answer that door at 3 a.m., not willing to step up to the plate and do whatever it takes, pick up the heavy stuff, whatever, then of course the woman's not going to have the ability to step into her femininity. And that just doesn't work. The reality, it doesn't work. So
not long term. I would interject that most females, we like it in the beginning. Like, this is so cool. We never argue and fight, blah, blah, blah. And then like 5 years later, you're like, I'm so tired. You're exhausted.
Exactly. It's exhausting.
Yes.
It's exhausting. So, and I know that some men are a little more effeminate than other men, but at some point you've got to step up to the plate and be that. Mm-hmm. And it's just a matter of investing in yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't even know all the books that we've read and all the classes that we've taken to achieve what we have in our relationship. It's been a lot of work. You don't just sit on your ass and watch, TV. And even as interesting as Landman is, you just don't sit on your ass and watch TV all the time. It's not going to teach you what you need to learn. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of that was lost. You look at the World War I, World War II, and all these wars where the father figures were sent off to war to die. And so that masculine knowledge didn't get passed down from generation to generation. And I think if you really take a deep dive and look at that, you're like, wow, this is what we lost because of that. Mm-hmm. So I think that for men, it's important. I really, really think it's terribly important for men to have groups of men they hang out with to help drive their tribe, what I want to call their tribe, to help drive their force. You know what I mean? Because when you hang out with men, you kind of swell up. You're like, okay, let's go. It's challenging, and men challenge each other. And I think it's also important to have men inspect you. And if you're showing up weak in an area, then you need to have men that can tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. Not just your friends are worried about hurting your feelings. Mm-hmm. Men can say, hey, dude, you're coming up short in this area. How can we help you get there?
And can I just add a little caveat real quick and come back to this? I think it's important. Dr. True and I were just talking about this, the decline in the food, the lack of nutrition, and the hormones that are in all our water supply, that are in plastics, that are lowering testosterone levels. And we're wondering why our men are losing their motivation and their drive. And it is a complicated topic because it is compounded with women castrating them all the time, right? So I'm not saying this singly, but if they were in a men's group, they would be more comfortable, and you'd go, hey, dude, he could maybe share and say, my drive is down. What's wrong? I didn't used to be like this. And then he could have that conversation with older men that have been through that and go, well, let's look at that. That's an easy fix, right? That's just something that you can fix easily. And then you get your juice back. And a man without juice, it's really hard to respect a man without juice. At first, like I said, a woman's like, yeah, I got this, I'm in charge, right? And then, 5 years later, you're like, dude, do something, do anything, right? Make a decision, give an opinion, but we, by that point, we've railroaded him to death. We've castrated him to death. We've run over. Remember how many, and I do still do it on occasion. I apologize. But, I used to always say, I know. And you'd be like, you don't know. And I'm like, I do know. And then you're like, you don't know what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, yes, I do know what you're, like the arrogance of it, just the sheer arrogance of it is just shocking. And by no means have you ever been a weak fella here, right? That's just how, right? That's cray-cray, people, cray-cray. But, how does, going back to those men's group, I just really wanted to interject that because sometimes it is an external, or it's not an issue up here or spiritual or cultural. It is a physical something, and that can be easily taken care of. So I just wanted to interject that. Go ahead. So what else with men in the men's group, and how would that really show up for how, as a sovereign man, that you're helping in the relationship, let's just say when we're navigating conflicts. Thank God you and I, oh my God, we have the same values, the same commitments. That's so super important. And we should talk about that at another podcast about how important that is when you're dating. If they want to sleep, and I always use this silly example. If they want to sleep, if the woman wants to sleep with the dogs in the bed, first of all, my husband would never allow that. I would never allow that, but that's fine. Let's just pretend that I thought it would be cute to have Rip in the bed with us. That's a deal breaker, right? That's a deal breaker. So as silly as that is, but talking about finances, talking about politics, talking about religion, talking about health, talking about, did I say sex? If not, I'm going to say it again. Sex, what kind of sex do you like, right? And until we have these things, we don't have mutual values and commitments. So how can you navigate conflicts respectfully? But let's go back to the men and the men's group and how y'all would learn or help each other to learn those skill sets to bring home to your women that are just waiting.
Well, one of the men's group I'm in, they tell you right off the bat, get your testosterone levels checked.
Okay.
They're like, get your testosterone levels checked.
Good.
Because it's important. And because of the food and the plastics and everything else, it's something you have to do. Mm-hmm. So that's where your juice lies. Mm-hmm. So having men that you can talk to about this, and having men that will push you and go, hey dude, did you get your testosterone checked last week? No, I didn't. Well, get this shit done this week. Mm-hmm. Well, suddenly it's not your wife nagging at you. Mm-hmm. That's your brotherhood going, do what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Okay. And, we have workout groups. We live in different areas, so we'll get on Zoom and we'll all work out together, in the morning time. And that way we're encouraging. And we do it in sets of 3. So if one guy drops out, the other 2 are still hanging. Mm-hmm. So, at 6 a.m., we're in the gym working out. Mm. And it's important to push each other, to challenge each other, to have that adventure buddy, to have that accountability with your adventure buddy. And you look at it like an adventure. You don't look at it like, oh, I gotta go to the gym again today. No, you look at it like an adventure. Like, hey guys, let's get in the gym in the morning, So I did want to bounce back to that. I'm sorry, can you repeat the other questions that you asked me? Because you asked me like 3 of them. And
so there are 3 points. There are, for a woman to graciously submit to head of household, shall we say it that way, there has to be a mutual respect for boundaries. We just talked about navigating conflicts respectfully. And the third one is setting aside personal interests in lieu of the relationship.
I think what's really important, and we're not taught this as men, what's really important, we have to figure it out, and it's not so easy. We have to figure out, to have a successful relationship, we have to take and make a decision that's best for the third entity. You got the man, you got the woman, okay? Then you have the relationship. That's the third entity. And as men, we have to put away our selfishness. And as young men, you don't know this, so it should be taught. And we do teach this in our groups. You have to put away your selfishness and go, what's best for my family? What's best for my relationship? Okay? Is having a race car best for my relationship? Okay? And where does that selfishness come in? I love to race. Yeah. But I canceled my last race because we're going to get some more education and learn and join a group of people so that we can become better than what we are now. So
well, let's just talk about that. That was so powerful. Like, I totally get that was a good decision. And it wasn't like I didn't think you'd make any other decision, but it still was really, it was a precious gift. It was a gift. I was like, wow, my husband, I know this, but my husband is really putting, that phrase, his money where his mouth is. And I know that he just gave up something that's just so fun and entertaining and good for you. And just, we all need that outlet, right? But yet you were like, very clear. No, this other activity is going to make us a better couple, more successful. It's good for our future. And really it made me just love you so much more and trust you and have faith, because like, wow, there he goes again. Integrity reigned. His his he was able to overcome his personal desires. And then what it does as a woman, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that next race we're on, right? Because I want you to have that gift. Right now, it's like, uh, okay. Now it's like, okay, look at the sacrifice that you made. Thank you. And how can I reward you? Which I think date night, I did a pretty good. I think I did.
Yeah. Very good job. No, so I think it's important that we put away our what's best for us, and it's tough. It's really tough because you know what you want the outcome to be, you know what she wants the outcome to be, and then you have to go, okay, I'm gonna have to make this decision. And I think the other thing is really important is as men, we are the king, okay? But if we don't consult our queen, she sees our blind spots better than anybody does. And your queen, if she's doing her job, she will point out your blind spots in a way that's not castrating. Okay? And she'll point out your blind spots and she'll say, hey, what about this? What about that? And as men, we have to be able to listen to that and hear that, not take it personally and go, that's a blind spot. Okay. All right. I can manage that. So, and put ourselves outside of that decision and go, this is what's best for the family. And your wife might not like that decision. I mean, I know I've made some decisions along the way. You're like, I don't know about that. And I'm like, I'm the one that has to take responsibility for it, so I will. And as men, we step up to the plate and do that. And I think that as men, when we make those decisions and whether it's what our wife wants or not, and in the end, it's best for the relationship. Over time, she gets to where she trusts you more. Over time, she gets to where she has more and more confidence in you. We got to rebuild this building. You were not really crazy about that idea, but I knew that if I could see the future, and if we didn't do it, we were going to run out of room. So,
well, I would like to add the input from the woman's perspective is that now it wasn't always like this between us, and but you've just done such a great job implementing this into your way of being. Is that I feel heard, and so what I learned out of that, feeling heard, being heard, even though your decision making might not be, I would have done it different or not the same or something like that. But now I'm able to teach women the distinction between, from feminism, we were taught, hear me roar, right? What? And what the difference is between that and being a queen whisperer. Like, isn't it more powerful when I have my head on your chest and, I'm whispering, yeah, hey, babe, just kind of had a thought. Can I share that with you? And how much more powerful that is instead of, babe, you're not listening. I'm trying. Oh, remember Melanie? Focus. We'll tell you all that joke later. That's funny. So anyways, focus, right? That doesn't work, does it? And it might get the attention, but I'm not going to be heard. I'm going to be tolerated, right? And so there's different ways of being, and in the Queen's Circle 101 class coming up, starting in January, we're going to talk about, whispering versus roaring and lifting up versus castrating and all these neat little different ways of being that are profound and create profound shifts. Right. And I found even when I made shifts, I didn't even have to talk to you about it. It was so innate, wasn't it? It was so, I don't want to use the word primitive. It was just so innate the way couples should be that we just both showed up that way. Didn't you find, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that as a man listens quietly, listens to his wife's feminine voice. There's an advertisement back in the 80s or 90s sometime frame. I think it was for a perfume called Whisper. It was like, if you want someone's attention, whisper. If you want someone's attention, whisper. It's an advertisement, but it's really true. Yeah. When you use that soft, tender sensual, loving voice on me, I'm like, I'm all ears. I'm paying attention. Where if it's a aggressive business, barking type voice, you just have a tendency to minister have, well, I'm about to be castrated, so I'm going to tune this shit out. It makes a big difference. So that's where, I tell women when I meet them, wherever, I'm like, if you really want to know the true power of a woman, read the Queen's Code book. Because a sovereign woman does not yell. A sovereign woman does not speak aggressively. A sovereign woman uses her feminine wiles, because that will stop trains. That'll stop traffic. And, that makes a big difference for men. Because suddenly it's like he swells up. He's like, okay, I'm the man, I'm the beast, and I'm going to listen, And it makes us listen, because now we know what our obligations and responsibilities start flooding in, and we have to step into that masculinity.
Well, I'm going to start.
Feminine power multiplies and amplifies masculine power. It doesn't compete with it. It does not compete with it. And masculine power does the same thing for feminine power. We support that. We create that space where it allows that femininity to come into full blossom. And that's a big deal.
Well, this is just the synchronicity of our relationship is so great, because I was going to close with, and you answered already. So one of the things we're going to focus on in the Queen's Circle 101 is, if you were truly in a relationship with your man and you were whole, complete, and fulfilled, what would your lives look like in 6 months? And I think that what Kevin was just sharing was that we are both the wind beneath each other's wings. I have such a confidence and a belief in myself and a surety. And I just know everything's going to be okay because of this relationship that I have with my husband. And maybe, and I love that I get to be the wind beneath your wings. I love that recently we had a little conflict and I was able to stand in the commitment of our relationship and stand for both of us, right? That was just so, I didn't do anything, right? Particularly, but just stood in that space of, I love Kevin. I am committed to our loving, long-term, fulfilling relationship that works for both of us, for me, for you. And so maybe, and I'm putting you on the spot here, what would be the one thing that, what your life now looks like, with these differences in our lives and this different way of being, and what would be encouraging for men and women to participate in these types of conversations with us?
Well, you are my best friend. And but there are things that, as a man, I don't talk to you about. Okay. There are things that I only talk to my men about, because as a man, I want to make sure that the conversations that I have with you are from never a weak perspective, never a weak man. Now, you've seen me in moments of weakness, but it's not common that I show up as weak.
And it's very, very, I am like a blip.
So if I have an issue that I need to speak to my men about, where I'm falling down, I'm not accomplishing, I'm not achieving my goals, then that's when I allow my men to kick my ass around and get me back up to speed. Because they build up the warrior. And in the old days, when we would go to war, we would come back from war, we'd sit around the fire and patch each other's wounds up and have a conversation about our strategy for the next day. So that's why having that brotherhood and having those men's groups, having that tribe is really, really important for men. It recharges our battery in ways that women can't. Um, so I have those masculine conversations offline. That way, I always get to show up for you as your warrior. I always get to show up for you as your knight. I always get to show up for you as your king, so that you don't have to worry. So that you're like, my man's got this.
Yeah.
And no matter what the challenge is, there's times those challenges are tough. And I need to show up. Men, it's different for men and women. You are loved just because of who you are. Children are loved just because of who they are. Dogs are just, puppies and kittens are, they're just loved because they're so adorable. Men are loved because of what we provide. We provide that platform of safety. If we don't perform, we don't get loved. And that's the cruel truth. You know, if I became slovenly and lazy and didn't do my job and sat around the house and eat ice cream and popcorn all day long, sooner or later you'd be like, I can do better than this. This motherfucker needs to pull his head out his ass, or I'm gonna go somewhere else. And you should. We have a job to perform on this planet, and we have to do our job. We have to step up to the plate. And I think that's one of the challenges that we've had with our society, is that we've allowed men to become soft. You know, there's a saying that hard men create good times create soft men create bad times. And that, I think that rings very true. And I think if you look at our society today, you can clearly see that. Did that answer your question?
It did. So, everyone, my husband's website is thenaciousview.com. And he, like I said, he'll be holding a men's event, which is very transformative, very masculine, lots of testosterone, lots of manly exercises with some really great conversations. January, we'll be starting the Queen Circle 101. And then there is a Queen Circle group that gathers after. You have to get the basics first. And that is thequeencircle.com for more details. And I hope everybody enjoyed our little brief conversation and what we're up to, and you're inspired and enrolled. And over the time, we'll share how we didn't used to be this way. And we're going to laugh about it, or else you would just cry about it, right? So stick around, because we would love to share our stories and our lives. And I know that if we can transform and have it all, and have this wonderful, amazing relationship, that you can too. So we look forward to seeing you at the tenaciousview.com and thequeencircle.com. And any last words you'd like to share, Kevin?
Just, I would like to tell a man to step up to the plate and do what you're supposed to do. If you need some guidance, come to our website. We have great books to recommend, and we have great men's groups. And I just got off a call before this call, and I had men from Florida, men from here in Atlanta, a man from Switzerland. We provide platforms so that men can grow and become all that they can be. They can become what they were put on this planet to become.
Well, thank you. All right, everybody. This is Kevin Boulton, my wonderful, amazing husband. And I am Doc Harmony. And remember, healthy energy is an amazing life. Ciao.